Happy Monday to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, a special quick note for you. This will be the only podcast of the week. I'm actually in the middle of a move this week, so a lot of things are hectic. A lot of things are fluid. So we're only going to do this episode one this week. Just one episode this week for all of you. We will be back on Monday, July 14th, a week from today, to be back going Monday, Wednesday, Friday with the live stream at 3 o'clock. So this will be the only podcast of this week. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. Back on Monday for a full slate of Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3. Okay, today, some fun predictions. Not guarantees, but some risky predictions, maybe some of you would say. I was reading my buddy Greg Bedard, and he broke down a lot of different guys into two categories as we get ready for training camp. And, of course, camp 2 weeks away from Wednesday. Bedard broke it down into guys who have helped themselves in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, and then guys who have work to do. So I want to start off with the guys who have helped themselves. Bedard writes that Kendrick Bourne helped himself during OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Here's what Greg wrote. Bourne seems to have matured a bit in this offense the second time around and is more on point with assignments. So here is prediction number one. Kendrick Bourne will end up being a solid number 3 receiver on this team this year. He will end up being a very, very solid, productive contributor in this offense. I don't think there's a lot of questions about Kendrick Bourne's talent. He's a talented guy. He's absolutely talented enough to be a number 2 receiver for a lot of teams in the league. And you look back at what he's done as a Patriot, there was that rocky season in 2022, but aside from that, he's been productive when he's been out there. He's made plays when he's been out there, which is even more impressive given some of the quarterback situations he's had to deal with. A rookie in Mac Jones, and then you go back to 2023 before he got hurt. He was dealing with Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, all the drama. Then last year, coming back from the ACL, Jacoby Brissett, Drake May, rookie quarterback. And Kendrick Bourne, through all of that, all these different offensive coordinators, these different quarterbacks, he has still produced when he's been out there. Now, is he a 90-catch guy? No, he has not been a 90-catch guy. And I'm not sitting here fixing my lips telling you he's going to be a 90-catch guy. But he has been productive. And he brings versatility. You can line up Bourne anywhere. He can play outside. He can play inside. He can even be the gadget guy on some of these jet sweeps. He can catch bubble screens. There's so many different things that he can do. And that versatility, I believe, is going to make him a valuable member of this offense. Now, maybe he's too valuable in the preseason. The Patriots get a great offer of like a fourth-round pick. They can't turn it down and they trade him. Maybe. But I think he's going to be on this team, and I think he's going to be a really, really important member of this offense. The questions about Bourne, they all have to do, again, not about his talent, but I think it's important that Bedard wrote. Bourne seems to be more on point with his assignments because that has been the biggest obstacle for Kendrick Bourne. The biggest obstacle for Bourne is, hey, do I know where I'm supposed to be and when I'm supposed to be there? The responsibilities. And you go back to 2021, McDaniels got through to Bourne. And Bourne was very comfortable, knew where he was supposed to be most of the time, was there at the right time, and made some plays for this offense. 2022 got off to a bad start in camp. He and Matt Patricia obviously did not see eye to eye, whatever happened there, and that was just a lost season. 2023, some really good, some not so great, but was on pace to have his best season before the injury with Bill O'Brien. And then in 2024, last year, again, coming back from the ACL, a little bit rusty, but he was uncertain too many times. And you could see some of those screw-ups from Bourne. The route running not as crisp always. Not always in the right spot. So the fact that Bourne has experience with this particular offense, he produced with this particular offense, and Bedard saying that in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, he looked comfortable. He looked like he knew where he was supposed to be. He was solid on the assignments. Makes me feel good about Kendrick Bourne. I know I did a podcast on Bourne a few months ago, and I felt pretty good about Bourne. I still feel good about Bourne. All right, let's jump to the second player. Guys who help themselves. Bedard writes, Craig Woodson. The more I saw him, the more I liked him. Probably why the Pats were so sold on him. Smart, great anticipation, gets in throwing lanes. He's going to push for time. Here is my second prediction when it comes to guys who have helped themselves. Craig Woodson's going to play a lot this year. If he stays healthy, I think Woodson is going to be on the field much more than many people, including myself, anticipated him being out there when he was drafted. I think he's going to get a lot of snaps. And I think it all goes back to the responsibility. It all goes back to the idea of, as Bedard wrote, great anticipation, getting in throwing lanes. He's in the right place at the right time more often than not. And coaches love that. Coaches love guys who are dependable, that they know they're not going to miss an assignment. They're not going to blow a coverage. And they also are confident in players that can make plays due to their IQ and anticipation. Is this guy out there going to make a play that we desperately need? Is he going to jump a passing lane and make a play? Because he can do it. So the right place, right time, nature of Woodson's game is going to help him get snaps, because I believe this staff is going to believe in him. They're going to trust him. And then you look at the free safety need. I've been talking about this the last few years. Peppers can play free safety at times. Duggar's not really good in coverage. Marcus Jones is smaller, probably going to play the slot cornerback position. You need somebody that is, bigger with range, and Woodson is that guy. Woodson could fill that free safety void. Now, I'm not telling you he's going to play 100% of the free safety snaps, but I think he will be out there a good amount playing free safety. And I also believe that his versatility, which is another key word for Mike Vrabel, Terrell Williams in this defense, Woodson's versatility, his ability to jump into the nickelback position, which I think he will be capable of doing, will also help him, because what this defense wants to do is confuse offenses, keep you on your feet. And the way you do that is mixing and matching certain positions with certain guys. The versatility. And Woodson has that. He has the ability to play on the back end. He has the ability to slide up and play big nickel. And he's mature. He's just such a mature football player. He's in college for a while, and he knows. He has seen almost everything. And that's why when he jumps into OTAs, he jumps into mandatory minicamp, and he's out there during his first NFL camp, he doesn't look like he's out of place, because that maturity breeds confidence. He's very confident in what he sees. He's very confident in what he's been through. He understands what offenses are trying to do. And maybe the most important point is that Woodson is physical, one of the most bruising hitters in the 2025 draft. And we always talk about Vrabel and Williams and their penchant for wanting to play physical, finishing plays, being violent, all those words we've used over the past few months. And that really is Woodson. Woodson is a violent hitter. He is the prototype of a defensive back in a Mike Vrabel defense. And they know that. Ryan Cowden, Vrabel, they've been through this before. When they see Woodson and they say to themselves, this guy can be a player for us. So I think Craig Woodson is going to end up playing a lot more snaps than people might have thought when he was drafted. And we looked at it, we said, wait a minute, they got Peppers, they got Duggar, they got Pettis, they got these guys at safety. Marcus Jones is going to play nickelback, we think. Is Woodson going to play? Is he going to get on the field? How much is he going to get on the field? I think he's going to get on the field. And I think he's going to get on the field a decent amount in 2025. All right, let's jump to the third and final guy I want to talk about regarding guys who have helped themselves, according to Greg Bedard, in the early camp season, OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Monty Rice, linebacker, young and unheralded, but very active and in the middle of many plays. Here is my third and final prediction, stemming from Greg's observations. I believe this might be the biggest one. Monty Rice makes this roster. I said it. I think Rice makes the 53-man. Now, would I put a lot of money on that? No. I would not put a ton of money on it, but I think Rice makes the 53-man. We have to go back to the origin of Monty Rice as an NFL player. He was drafted by who? He was drafted by Vrabel, Ryan Cowden, and the Tennessee Titans. He was drafted by them because obviously they thought that he was a worthwhile young player to bring into the program. And we don't know how his trajectory was impacted by Vrabel being let go before the 2024 season. We have no idea. But we do know that Rice has some experience in this defense. He understands what Terrell Williams wants from the linebacker position. He understands what Mike Vrabel demands from his players. He has that experience in this defense. He should absolutely be shot out of a cannon. And by the sounds of it, he was at OTAs and mandatory minicamp. He looked like a guy who understood what was going on out there on the field. So his experience in this defense gives him a leg up on some of those other depth options at linebacker. You know, Marte Mapu, again, I'm not going to believe it until I see it. If he can stay on the field and consistently play, then we might have a conversation. But when you look at that last spot, Jelani Tavai with the injury, there's an opportunity here for Monty Rice to run away with one of the 53-man roster spots during training camp. If he goes out there and he shows out, Mapu gone, Tavai might be gone, and the door opens for him. And I think he's going to make the most of that. This is somebody who is a former top 100 pick. NFL teams don't throw away top 100 picks. There's a reason why you are drafted in the top 100. And Vrabel's had a pretty decent history with a lot of the linebacker play. He obviously played the position when he was in the league. So if they spent a top 100 pick on a linebacker, there's got to be the potential there. And Monty Rice is only 26 years old. We're not talking about a dude who's long in the tooth. He should be entering his prime. So the opportunity is going to be there at linebacker. And I think Monty Rice is going to take advantage of that. And I think he ends up on this 53-man roster. He will end up being one of the surprises on the 53-man. Am I guaranteeing that? Of course not. But it's a prediction. All right, I want to get to the guys who have work to do, according to Bedard. But first, a reminder, only podcast this week is today's podcast. We're back on July 14th, a week from today, next Monday, and we'll be going live again Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 3 p.m. Don't forget to help us out. Click that thumbs up as you watch this episode on YouTube. The more likes means more eyeballs, trying to beat that algorithm. So don't forget to like. Don't forget to throw a comment in as well. Give me a prediction of yours. Guys who have helped themselves in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, somebody who stands out to you. Make sure you throw a comment in. And don't forget to subscribe. We're still trying to hit 7,000 subscribers. We can only do that with your help. So like, comment, subscribe, Spotify, Apple Pods, rate, review, follow, throw comments in there as well. All right, let's get to Greg Bedard's guys who have work to do. And I want to begin with Cole Strange. Bedard wrote, Strange's start to camp could make or break his spot. Can he grab a hold of left guard and never let go? Will need to show football IQ. Here's my prediction for Cole Strange. I predict that Cole Strange will not be the starting left guard in week 1. The football IQ thing is very interesting. Haven't heard a ton of that. But low football IQ from Cole Strange. He has to show football IQ. We know this offense can be challenging for some people. We know that. And if Cole Strange isn't on the up and up with the X's and O's, that's an entirely different problem that we really haven't even discussed. We've talked about the injury history. We've talked about the smaller anchor for an offensive lineman. But football IQ, if that's a question, that's another big question for Cole Strange. Is he behind? Can he catch up? Can he actually get ahead? And with Strange, we can look at him and you can really take the best or the worst. He's had an up and down history. His rookie season wasn't necessarily great. In 2023, he got off to a rough start. He's kind of up and down. And then right before the injury, he played some of his best football. And then last year, because of the nature of that injury, which is a very serious injury, very tough to come back from a torn patellar tendon, especially when you are an offensive lineman. Last year was a lost year for Cole Strange. So his career has been up and down. And I don't know anybody who could sit here and be confident that he's going to walk in to 2025 and hold on to that starting left guard spot and be the guy there. He could be, but I'm not super confident in that. He's an undersized guy. Remember, he was drafted with this idea of, well, we're going to change our offense. McDaniel's no longer here. We're going to run some more, zone and all that. Outside zone and blah, 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 more athletic offensive linemen and this and that. Strange, a smaller guy. So is he the type of dude at left guard that can get to that second level and take cats out of running plays? If McDaniels wants to go with duo, if he wants to run downhill at teams, is Strange going to be that guy? So how good of a fit is he? And I'm not writing off Sidy Sow. I think Sidy Sow has a really good chance of winning the left guard job. Mike Onwenu was limited because of a hand injury. Sow played on the right side for the most part during OTAs and mandatory minicamp. But once Onwenu's out there, and I would anticipate him being out there day one of camp, once Onwenu is out there, well, now you talk about Sidy Sow swinging over to the left guard position, and now you're talking about somebody who I think could be a great fit for the McDaniels offense. So I would not write off Sidy Sow. I would not write off Tyrese Robinson just yet. But prediction number one, Cole Strange doesn't start week one at left guard. Let's go to another player that Bedard wrote about having work to do. Another offensive lineman. Not great. Garrett Bradbury. Bedard wrote, might be the guy I worry the most about on this roster. It will be interesting to see if they give Jared Wilson a chance to take the job and how much they put him at left guard. That might need to happen. Here's my prediction, number two, about guys who have work to do. I think Bradbury will be out of the starting lineup by week 5. I think he will be overtaken by Jared Wilson by week 5. First, let's start with this idea of the transition from college football to the NFL. Wilson has played only one season as a starter at Georgia. He was originally a guard, moved to center, so he doesn't have a ton of experience at that position. What he showed was a lot of potential there. Obviously, had a really good season in the SEC, best conference in college football. But he's relatively inexperienced. And he also wasn't out there during OTAs. He wasn't out there during mandatory minicamp. So this is going to be a big training camp for Jared Wilson. Can he catch up to speed? Can he get the reps? And could he get moving out there? I think because of the OTAs and mandatory minicamp, he's a little behind. And because he's a little behind and because he's relatively inexperienced, I'm not expecting Wilson to be the guy week 1. But I do think throughout training camp, through the joint practices, the preseason, I do think that eventually Wilson is going to be close to Bradbury as they kick off week 1. And by week 5, after the first month of the season with Wilson on the sidelines, watching and learning and practicing, I do think that by week 5, Jared Wilson's the guy. Now, that would be interesting because if I'm right and Wilson ends up being the guy by week 5, because it's not one of those things where you get the bye week and you can throw the rookie in after the bye week because the bye week's so late in the season. Again, so like week 14, whatever it is. I mean, it's way late into the season. So you're not going to wait until week 13, week 14, week 15 to throw a guy out there. It would be interesting if Wilson is the guy by week 5 because week 5, as we know, pretty difficult. At Buffalo, Sunday Night Football. That's a very difficult starting assignment for a rookie center. And maybe because of that, the Patriots would wait. But the next week, week 6, you have to go on the road to New Orleans, a very, very noisy place. So Maybe they throw Jared Wilson into the deep end. I could feel it. I could feel him having the starting center job by week 5. Tough assignment, week 1 in Buffalo, Sunday Night Football, a lot of people watching. But I think the potential, the ceiling will be too high. I think we will quickly find out what Garrett Bradbury is, which is serviceable, not very good against the pass rush. And I think eventually the Patriots can be standing there looking at Jared Wilson and saying, this guy is not going to do as bad as that guy. Let's put him in there. Let's get him out there while he's young. Let's get him working because we feel like he has a much higher ceiling. And we're going to play the ceiling versus the floor game. And at a certain point, you're sitting there through the first week, the second week, third week, fourth week. At a certain point, this coaching staff is going to say, Wilson's just better. He's just going to be the better player. Let's put him out there sooner rather than later. Let's get him working. Let's get him comfortable. And so by the second half of the season, we can really take off because we need that help in pass protection. So I predict that Jared Wilson makes this starting lineup by week 5 and that Bradbury is the backup by week 5. All right, one more player to take a look at. Guys with work to do. Bedard writes, Marcus Epps coming back from ACL surgery, so he has a ways to go, but the initial impressions didn't stand out. I predict that Marcus Epps will not make this football team. I think he is going to get cut. Now, let's start with what I said earlier in the first segment of this episode. Craig Woodson getting a lot of snaps. These tie in together. I think Woodson gets a lot of snaps. I think Epps, the staff looks at this team and they say, Woodson's going to play a lot. And Epps, when you look at the numbers game, Woodson surges. I think he becomes that third safety for you. I think you got Peppers, you got Duggar, and then Woodson will be third in line. And depending on how you use Peppers and Duggar, Woodson's going to be out there more than you might think, as we mentioned. So you'll have that Woodson surge. And then you look at somebody like Del Pettis. And inevitably what the coaching staff has to decide is, do we want to ride with Del Pettis or do we want to keep Marcus Epps on this roster? What is best for us in the short term and long term? And is the long term more important because we feel like we're pretty good at safety with our top 3 guys? That's how I feel. I feel you're in pretty good shape. If Woodson does what I think he's going to do, I think you're in good shape with Peppers, Duggar, and Woodson as your top 3 safeties. I think you feel good about that. And that's why I look at Del Pettis, who's 24 years old, undrafted free agent, proved that he could play in the NFL last year. He was, by the way, on the guys who have helped themselves list for Bedard. Del Pettis was. So he had a good OTA and mandatory minicamp. He continues to prove that he's an NFL player. He's 24. Epps is 29, coming off ACL surgery. I think you go with the younger guy. You go with the 24-year-old because you could get more bang for your buck long term than throwing Epps out there. I think Epps was brought in as insurance. Maybe the Patriots, obviously, they weren't sure if they were going to be able to draft somebody like Craig Woodson. They drafted Woodson. I'm sure that Vrabel wanted to see what Del Pettis looked like because he wasn't coaching the team last year. And after looking at all of this, it just feels like your top 4 safeties will be Peppers, Duggar, Woodson, and Pettis. Maybe I'm wrong. I wonder if Epps is going to play a lot on special teams. We know that Jalen Hawkins does, so I think that probably gives Hawkins the edge over Epps. And inevitably, you've got to ask a guy who is, and I know, we talk about Stephon Diggs and we're optimistic about Stephon Diggs because of what we see from the ACL surgery and how he's moving out there. But it's pretty difficult. Epps 29 coming off that ACL surgery, and according to Bedard, hasn't really stood out. So it doesn't sound like he's making as quickly of a recovery as Diggs is. So maybe they stash him on the pup. Maybe they just decide not to bother with him. How much juice does he have left? I don't know. But I think Epps gets cut. So as far as the guys who have work to do, I think Cole Strange is not starting at left guard week 1. I think Jared Wilson is starting over Garrett Bradbury by week 5. And I think Marcus Epps gets cut mostly because Craig Woodson ends up proving that he can play some football at this level. All right, don't forget, this is the only podcast this week. We're back next Monday, July 14th, to go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. We are 2 weeks as of Wednesday. We are 2 weeks away from training camp. This is when we get truly excited. We start looking at things. We start talking about these guys. We start to see actual practices and joint practices and gather more information. It's an exciting time as we creep closer to camp. I can't wait to cover it. I appreciate every single one of you. Don't forget to click the thumbs up as you watch this video. Like us. That always helps. Throw a comment in. That helps as well. And don't forget to subscribe. 7,000 is the goal. We've been on that goal for a while. Let's try to get there by training camp. And my friends at Spotify, Apple Pods, rate, review, follow. Also throw your comments in as well. Enjoy the rest of your week. You can check me out, Locked On Patriots, Wednesday and Friday. We have today's episode up as well, so don't forget to check out Locked On Patriots. Until next Monday, we'll see you later. I appreciate every single one of you, and I guess there's just one thing to say. Bye-bye.